Hi, friends. Welcome back to Cardvoyant. I'm Kris, and I'm your Cardvoyant. And today I am going to be doing a reading about 2023. I don't think of this as a reading about predictions. It's more, well, what I asked when I was laying out the cards is what do we need to know, what it would help us to know, and what it would be good for us to know for 2023. I'll talk a little bit about that. If you want to go straight to the reading without this info, this intro, and this info, I'll put the time that the reading starts right here. But a couple of things. Um, I have been thinking a lot about the ways in which we have changed, which humanity and myself and individuals and so much has changed since the beginning of the pandemic, since 2020. In a lot of ways, far beyond that, for the past, I was going to say 8 to 10 years, and they say 30 years. So we'll say 30 years. That makes sense to me. I can understand the timing of saying, 30 or 40 years. And it feels like we have that far to go as well before we sort of completely climb out of this and into a kind of new beginning. But we have changed so much since the pandemic. And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, many people saying, we'll never go back to the way things were. And I just thought that was kind of hyperbole. I thought, we're definitely go back. We'll fix things and we'll definitely go back to the way things were. But I don't think that's true anymore. So I do think that as we go into 2023, we're dealing with a lot of differences in ourselves and in the world, in our communities, our schools, our institutions, our governments, the list goes on and on. So I wanted to sort of address that going into 2023 and see what our guides, my guides, and I feel when I'm doing this that it's like my guides, my main counselor guide. That's what I call our main spirit guide, our counselor guide. And then also my master guides who help me out, who are my Jacob's guides. As you can see, I'm very casual today. I'm just sitting at home, very casual, and just felt like I should do this. Okay, the other thing is that I'm using the deck I originally used, and I laid down this spread with, is called Vice Versa Tarot. I'll put a picture of the box up. I will have a link to these cards in the description of this video. Just like a disclaimer, I'm putting in the Amazon link, which I have, it's called affiliated marketing. I've never used it before, but if enough people bought something, or maybe it's every person, I don't know, there's some small amount if you purchase from a link in my bio, if I can figure out how to set it up, that I would receive something from that purpose, but you absolutely don't have to purchase from Amazon, and they have a number of decks. You might find something else you like. The Vice Versa Tarot. It's fascinating because they have this standard. I mean, it's based on Rider-Waite, so a lot of the imagery is the same on the front of the cards, but the back of the cards are as if you are looking out from the perspective of the characters in the card. So it's fascinating, and the way that they've done it is really interesting too. So I want to use that for this reading because I feel like this is going to be a deeper or deep reading, and I thought they would be appropriate. I went through and placed all of my standard Rider-Waite cards next to them as sort of a reminder for you and for me too of the Rider-Waite imagery. Now, the way that I saw this spread in my head, and it's a lot of cards, so I always am a little bit like, okay, that's a lot of cards, but I'm sure that has a lot to say. I saw it as a circle with a middle card. So we'll talk about that as we go through the spread. I'll try not to spend too much time just explaining the cards because I feel like the message obviously is much more important in this reading. So again, I didn't ask predictions for 2023, which is something I'm not really comfortable doing. But I did ask what we need to know, what it would be helpful to know and what it would be good for us to know about 2023, in order to help us get through it, to make the most of it, to understand it. So we'll see what they have to say. So with that, let's get started. Now, again, there are 9 cards. It's a lot of cards in a reading. When I do an hour-long reading for people, it's never more than 7 cards, and that's rare. Usually it's more like 5 or 3 cards for an hour-long reading. This isn't going to be a 2-hour reading, I promise, but there are 9 cards here, so we'll get through them and work through them and see what our guides have to say to us with this reading. So at the top of this reading, and I say round, it's a circle with a middle, but I kind of see it as a clock for whatever reason. That may have to do with the timing of things happening. It may just have to do with our guides talking about time, how we are bound by time in physical life. And it's important to us, and we see it in that structural way. But it does feel like that to me. It does feel like this is at the midnight or the noon position, the top position here, and it's the 6 of Cups. Now, I think this has to do with our nostalgia for the way things were, but calling us on us, as this card does, to think about the things that in the past, pre-pandemic, that were important to us, that led us toward love instead of fear, like those good things. Like, what is it if we were taking something from our pre-pandemic lifetime? What would it be that we would want to take with us? What are those beautiful and good and loving and important things to us individually, but also as a society, because we need to understand that, and we need to work to take those things with us throughout this year and going just forward in our individual lives and in as a society. So take a look at this 6 of Cups. I mean, you can see the regular Rider-Waite imagery, but look at this very interesting imagery here that we have sort of this calling on more our adult selves here. In the Rider-Waite, it's more the children, but here these adult, and it's harkening back. This water symbolism in tarot, as you probably know, is all about the non-physical world, our soul selves, our inner selves. And look at the back here, where we have this sort of disapproving figure looking at these 2 individuals who are recapturing those loving moments, as we see the cups laid out here. I feel like there are a lot of forces, I hesitate to use that word, but that's the word they give me, in the world that are attempting to sort of undermine this kind of loving nostalgia. They're very much driven by what they show me as like mechanics. So what they're talking about is like corporations running the world as a business, right? Very much this sort of gears happening. And then there are others, and this isn't absolute, like it's not, no person or hardly anyone wants to run their lives completely systematically in a business-like sense, or in this sort of greedy, powerful kind of way, this corporate kind of way. They're showing me that what's the movie with Michael Douglas, the Greed is Good movie? There's that line that it comes from. They're showing me that to sort of give this interpretation of many people, the way they're wanting to structure the world, especially for whatever reasons coming out of this pandemic. There's been a lot of takeover of the way that we think about things during this time, right? Even though many of us thought that we would be led to sort of this kinder, gentler 6 of Cups moment, there have been others who have used it to push this sort of corporate business. It's very structural. It's very much like running the world on gears, like a business, all of the world, right? And doing things in this very precise way in order to have an outcome, right? Like doing things in order to have an outcome, which is like what business and profit motivation is about. But it's not just like businessmen. Like we can't just blame this on businessmen because there's so many people who have sort of jumped on this bandwagon where it's more about driving everything to achieve an outcome rather than moving toward love and allowing that to blossom in whatever ways they blossom, right? But it's incumbent upon us, especially during this upcoming year, and they kind of say especially at the beginning of the year, to very much move in love and determine that this is what we stand for and this is how we move, because ultimately the universe balances in love. So there will come a time, even if it's not today or tomorrow, there will come a time when everything is balanced in love. And it's not retribution. It's not even punishment for some things that have been done and will be done. It's justice. It's what we think of as karma. Everything balances in love. And so people that work against that, or this accumulation of things that aren't that, challenging things, sort of difficult things, sometimes you might think of them as evil or bad things, they will ultimately be brought like to justice. There will be a balancing, and that balance always takes place on the side of love, because the universe is made from love. Right? This card is reminding us, starting out the year, to figure out what we stand for and to move towards all of those things and all of those people that bring us closer to love, closer to all those things that in the past have brought us joy and happiness and love, and remembering those things and remembering to move toward them throughout the year, especially at this beginning of the year, sort of taking that stand to move things forward in our lives, and hopefully in our families, communities, states, countries, world. And that's why you get the Eight of Cups. And this Eight of Cups, I mean, it's talking about moving away. And, there's been so many things that we have moved away from over the past 2 or 3 years, that we've been forced to reevaluate, that we've been forced to give up. And it's been bittersweet, right? I mean, look at this Eight of Cups, and especially let's look at the back, this vice versa tarot, this Eight of Cups, because you see this again. You think of the children in the Rider-Waite version of the Six of Cups, and here you have this child sort of staring at these cups, wondering like what has been lost. Because in the Eight of Cups, to me, one of the most striking parts of it is the way that they're set up, and it's true in this card and the Rider-Waite, as if there is a cup missing. Well, this is the cup that we're taking with us as we step away from the old way of doing these things, from our old lives. So what do we take with us? Because what we take with us, they want you to know, what you take with you at the outset of this year is what shapes your year. That's why you get the Two of Wands, because it's asking, where are you going? I mean, in talking about a 2023 sort of what's happening this next year video, it's very typical to make predictions like, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. But what they're saying is, in the context of your life, our individual lives that add up to our collective lives, it's more important to determine where we're going. Where do we want to go? It's very interesting to me that in the vice versa deck, I didn't mean to, but it came out looking from what would be like the back of the card. Let me show you the front as well. This is the front that is a little more traditional looking, but you can see him standing out and looking out over the horizon of his world and the rising sun. To me, this is the rising sun, not the setting sun. This is what we're beginning for this year, and him determining what is happening. I kind of love the imagery of this. Here we have the globe in the Rider-Waite deck, but here we have in this version this glowing orb that is the globe in some ways, but it also talks about this glow within us, this passion within us. And I don't want to call it a fire in this particular instance, because it's more important to be seen as a glow from within us, this passionate energy about what we carry about and what we're taking forward. It's better to think of it that way than as a fire, because fires can be extinguished. This glow from within is much harder to dampen, to tamper down. Or extinguish, right? Because it comes from a different place. It's not out in the elements, it's within us. And card is asking us to determine early on, right now, as you're beginning to think about the next year, what you are taking into that year and where you want to go with it. What things are most important to you? They want me to emphasize again, and I mean, this is just always so vital to our lives, to making tarot useful in your lives. They want you to know that you create your own reality. This is very true on a personal level, but of course, it's true of us as human beings in this physical environment collectively. There has to be this energy of wanting to push for these important things, these loving things, these humanitarian things, these beautiful things, these artistic things, these even technological things that benefit all of us, that bring us closer to love and enlightenment, if you want to think of it that way. So what will you take? Because you are determining what this year looks like for you right now. We're all determining it collectively. And we have some really beautiful things that we can see that could transpire if we, pack up those loving intentions and move them into the world. Because if not, you get this Seven of Swords. And this card, I mean, it's just such, you can see in both examples here. And I think even this vice versa deck feels more almost contemporary, very much kind of this young person. I think that's important for some reason. They want me to talk about youth and youthful enthusiasm, no matter what your age, in moving toward one thing or another. And each of us can be deceived. I mean, this is a card of sort of theft and deceit. You see the people in the background who have are speaking in the Rider-Waite deck and who are sort of around this campfire in this vice versa deck. And then this person sort of absconding with these accumulated swords. And, swords are about our minds, what we think about. And there are many people whose thoughts are being stolen away right now with promises of security. I was going to say sort of peace and plenty, and it's that too. But at the most basic level, it's about feeling safe. And people want to feel safe above kind of all else, or at least the beginning of all else. And we have to be very careful about what things are making us feel safe, because we have to understand, again, going back to the idea of creating our own reality, that we're always safe in the world because we're immortal beings. I mean, this is an experience that we're having, one of many, as non-physical beings in the physical world. And ultimately, there's no destruction of us. There's no like making a mockery of us, or there's no forcing us in ways. I mean, these are our decisions. And there's so many right now because people have been through so much. And this is especially true of young people who have spent the past 3 years having their ideas shaped by so many difficult circumstances and by so many, and I'll use the word again, deceitful people, that they're really trying to figure out things in this world. And this year feels better in some ways, but it feels like a lot of the ways in which it's better are almost like superficial. They're showing me like sort of weather-wise, so I don't know exactly what that means. If there are fewer like natural disasters, or if it's just that some things, like right now I'm in California, we have a horrible drought, and I don't know if that may mean that the drought is eased somewhat, or that there's fewer fires or fewer other things like that. So it feels in that way brighter, sunnier. But then all these man-made things seem extremely like difficult, and again they bring me back to sort of these machinations of people in sort of the business world and that kind of climate who are there's just a lot of chaos surrounding that. So I don't, that may be the economy, that may be individual businesses, it may be the sort of geopolitical landscape, but because of these things happening, all of us, but especially young people who haven't seen a lot of the way the world can operate or has on occasion operated, or who don't have the years of experience to fall back on. They just have such a narrow vision of what has happened to them as reference, right? So they kind of don't have that to fall back on, and they are going to look for safety, security, and guidance where they can find it. We have a lot of exceptional young people in the world right now who are here for this very moment, but it's too easy for us to say they'll save us. We need to save them first. But that's why you get the sun card, because this is a generation. I say generation, and I kind of think of everybody in their very early 20s and younger as being among them. So it's kind of multi-generational if you think of a generation as about 10 years. This is an exceptional group of strong souls who are here in this moment because they've lived lifetimes to prepare them for this moment. And that's why you get the sun card with this beautiful child of innocence and power and passion and love, and this horse of purity and pure intent. If you look on the back, this is so perfect, the vice versa card. Even though you have this radiant, beautiful scene in front, if you look from behind, there's this idea of the walls that need to be breached, the things that need to be overcome to get to this moment, or that have been overcome in some ways, because again, the glow comes from within. But even though this generations have this glow within, it can be, I don't want to say completely extinguished, but it can be dampened and tamped down in a way that lets this sort of Seven of Swords energy in. So it's incumbent upon us as this generation who's seen so much to bring them into the light, to bring them into love, to help move them toward love and support them in all of these things they're doing and all of these loving changes that they're willing to make, not the least of which is acceptance of others, because they're a very loving and accepting generation. And it's, that kind of change can be hard for those of us older folks who may have experienced things differently. But it's funny because as someone who grew up in the 60s and 70s and all of that sort of hippie, movement, there are a lot of us who sort of wonder and marvel at like what happened, right? What happened to that energy? What happened to that loving, accepting energy that I know was, scary to many people, but what happened to the best parts of it? And I'm not saying it's been completely extinguished, but you see where we are, where we're at as a world. So what happened? Well, in many cases, is a resurgence of that generational feeling that, with such strong support from these young people and with our own will, can come back. It's attempting to come back, this time to stay, or at least more permanently or stronger, so that it affects the greater instead of the lesser, right? But that's why you get this chariot card. Hi again, friends. Well, here we are at the chariot card, and this is about halfway through the reading. I hadn't planned on making two videos for this reading, but as I got editing this, and I realized the video's already a half an hour, and I'm only halfway through the reading. So I thought I'd go ahead and make two parts. So this is the end of part one. If you'll go ahead and go to part two, you'll see the rest of the reading. I should mention that if you're interested in having a reading, I do have gift cards available right now that never expire, and the 25% off. Take your time and get into the second part. I hope you enjoy it. And until then, please take care of yourself. Please take care of others. And bye for now.